Hello again, this is the US Futures weekly chart analysis for the week ending 28th of October 2022. First chart is the US dollar index futures. And we'll put some lines in to make the price action come alive to some degree. And just a bit of history quickly. Price accelerated higher and broke out above this breakout line. Everything looked fine. That was this volume down here. Supply was drawn out on this bar. Very high volume, closed poorly. This was a shakeout, or at least the bottom half of it was anyway. A little bit of over-exuberance in the market made it close as an up bar for the week. Price attempted to go higher in response, and once again appeared to draw out supply. There was an increase in volume, spread narrowed, the next bar was down. Supply continued to be drawn out at this level and above, and this week we had a down bar in response. That was the expectation. Price has tested the 110 level and found that there was some buying support come in, as expected at that level. A break below this level would likely be significant and would see this level here tested for strength then. But at the moment, buying support came in the market, and that's what you probably expected to see. We'll just see how strong that buying support is and whether it's going to continue to push price higher in response, or whether the 110 level gets a secondary test for strength, and then we'll really see how strong this market is. This is the S&P 500 futures, the E-mini. There was support come in on this bar initially. You see price moved lower but with a reduced spread on an increase in volume. Next bar was a buy the offer bar. Price moved up, drifted lower into the end of the week. This bar was likely some form of shakeout below all the previous lows. I expect initially price moved higher and then sliced lower and then closed back up off its lows. Next bar was up to confirm the buying, and this week price moved higher again. And that really does suggest that there was buying at this level. The interesting part was this bar did not close off its highs when the increased support came in for the US dollar. That suggests this market really is a little bit stronger than you might expect. So from this level and higher, pretty much where price closed this week, there is likely to be some increased resistance from the left. It's going to make it a bit more difficult to move higher. But if the strength continues, especially if there's weakness in the US dollar, this level up here at 43.138 is going to be the next target. But that will likely only happen if the strength continues and this older supply from the left is not overwhelming. So we'll just see how the market goes. Definitely been buying at the lows down here, and this response over 2 weeks has confirmed that buying. The 10-year note futures, and price did move higher, as I suggested it may attempt to do this week. The close off the highs likely reflects the strength that came in the US dollar index when it tested 110. The increase in volume showed there really was an attempt to push price higher. This was a proper recovery. It wasn't just a floating low volume recovery. I'm not sure there really is enough strength to break above this minor level and attempt to go higher. But there may be a test for supply here next, something like this, prior to any attempt to move higher or a breakdown in response, which would look more like that. So we'll see what we get. Copper price futures have been very resilient recently. They haven't stretched lower. They've been trading sideways. You can see price attempted to move higher this week from the previous close, but with the strength coming in the late part of the week in the US dollar, prices moved lower, and there has been an increase in volume. So this was supply coming in. You may have had some shorting pushing price down here, and there would have likely been some supply being drawn out from the left as well as price moved above this level here at 3.5. So you've had a bit of supply being drawn out from the left, probably a bit of short positions being loaded up here to see if price will move back down to this level or worse. So more than likely, you'll see some form of test for supply come in now, like this, especially early in the week, and we'll see how much supply is drawn out. If a lot of supply is drawn out, price will probably have to move deeper down. If not so much supply is drawn out, there may be an attempt to push higher towards the end of the week. Gold price futures. Gold price futures traded in a very similar fashion to copper this week. Price did attempt to move higher and then was pushed lower with the strength in the US dollar towards the end of the week. No serious weakness at this point. It hasn't broken down yet. I won't be surprised to see some sort of testing for supply, similar to the copper market, something like this. And then depending on whether supply is ongoing, price may continue lower, or if supply is low, price may attempt to close higher towards the end of the week. It'll just depend if the market does test for supply like this. A test for supply is a narrow spread down bar, closing mid to high on reduced volume. And that's what I expect to see. It threatens any sellers in the market. If sellers don't emerge, then the market often pops back up and may even push up higher towards the end of this week. But if when price trades lower, increased supply is drawn out, you'll generally get a deeper pullback or a shakeout. That's the market's way of attempting to remove the supply that continues to be drawn out. Silver price futures. Silver price futures have also been quite resilient. There has been some buying in the recent background. In here, here's the high of the current range. It was up here, but supply was drawn out and pushed price down. This market's a little bit stronger than the copper and gold markets. Price did move higher, similar to the other two markets, but they both closed slightly lower for the week, and this market remained as an up bar, only just, and volume was a little below average, where the other two were slightly above average. So selling pressure was reduced in this market in comparison to the copper and gold markets. It's perhaps looking a little bit more promising. Since this buying support came in down here, this whole market has looked a little more promising. It's loading itself up, it's gaining a bit of strength, and the market sentiment is suggesting that there's a bit more optimism in this market. Like crude price futures, we saw some buying support come in here, and I was anticipating a push up to this level this week. That didn't quite happen. There was a test for supply early in the week here, and supply was found to be low. You can see volume is low, and that means supply was found to be low. So price has floated up, and I say floated because volume was low. It was low for the entire week. Looking at that, well below average. So there was a lack of selling pressure in the market, and that allowed price to float higher. But it didn't move higher with any real intent. It doesn't need a test for supply, but if there's no intent in the market, you'll often get one as the market marks time and waits for a better opportunity to move higher. If the US dollar was to move lower next week, you may see price attempt to move higher in response, and then you probably would get this market move up to the lows of the old trading range in here. Strength in the US dollar next week, so long as it's not overwhelming strength, we'd likely see a test for supply early and then a move depending on how much supply is drawn out. Aussie dollar currency futures did attempt to move back into this old zone where the 65 level has previously had some support. I was really disappointed the market just sliced back through 65. It is attempting to recover. You can see price has closed right at the lows of this trading range when the increased support came in to the US dollar later in the week. That's taken the top off this and moved it back down. So now it's just holding on at the lows of the range. This market isn't really very strong. It's being pushed around by the US dollar and not trading on its own fundamentals anywhere near as much as it sometimes does. So it's trying to hold on. I still feel that the market's going to come back to 58 to 60 if we do get any sort of increased strength in the US dollar. If the US dollar did break below 110, then 65 is definitely where the market's going back to. So this is more about the US dollar than the Aussie dollar at this point in time. Last chart is Bitcoin futures. Bitcoin futures have been trading sideways in this range for an extended period now, and it makes me a little concerned. It's going on a little bit longer than I would like to see, but markets do what they do. We've had really high volume again this week. It's the fifth time in this sideways range that really high volume's been drawn out. It's been a little confusing because it's not always been showing the same intent. They've been mostly been on up bars. This one had a very narrow spread. That was likely supply. That's why it's confusing. These were likely buying the first two. This was likely selling into this one here. You can see the market's moved down in response. This was likely buying, and this was likely buying. This is buying up because there's no selling pressure in the market or not enough selling pressure. There's strength building in here. I keep saying it every week. But until we see a breakout one way or the other, well, maybe we should, hold on. We'll have a look in this range. Okay, this is that whole trading range, but in daily bars. So we're looking inside the weekly bars at the daily bars. And you can see the volume spikes. Here was that early one in here. Here was the next one. Here. Here. And here. That's the 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can see volume, it pushed up here. Price has come back on high volume, but it hasn't broken below that bar's low. The next bar up. This was likely a small period of buying. And you've had a little shakeout in response. That's this here, multi-bar shakeout. Not much supply was drawn out, so selling pressure was low. You've had a test of the shakeout here. Once again, supply is low or relatively low. And in response, prices moved higher. Well, this bar was selling, this bar here, that's pushed price lower. Next bar has increased volume, spreads narrowed. Next bar was up. These two bars here were definitely buying. The response to the buying saw the market continue higher on high volume. And here's probably the highs of this range here. Price wasn't able to continue higher. In fact, there was no intent to move higher. You can see volume was low here. So this was buying, but more likely accumulation. There was no intent to continue higher from that level. And then price just moved sideways in response on relatively low volumes. Price broke down here below the lows of that range. That's on that volume there. This is that higher volume. This was likely selling in here. You've had those two bars there, narrow spread up bars on increasing volumes here. This was likely selling pressure, and you can see price gapped lower here, albeit on low volume. So I expect this was a deliberate action. Price attempted to move higher here, but it was given no support. You can see this bar here had really low volume. There was no intent to move higher. There was no wish by the professionals to move this market higher. In fact, they preferred it lower. You can see the next bar after this, no demand bar, price sliced lower, well below that bar's lows, and then price moved down. With intent, it was pushed down. You can see this was a little shakeout bar here. It did draw out some supply. Now the next high volume came in here. It was a little bit of a shakeout there, no supply, a little bit of an up bar on increased volume. Looks like selling, but it's not, because price moved higher in response and then drifted lower. So that's a buy the offer bar. These two bars were likely buying. You've had a test for supply in the bottom of this bar there and a response higher. That was on very high volume. So this was a buying bar too. If you look back, you've had a buying bar, a buy the offer bar, a buying bar, a test for supply, a no demand up bar, another test for supply. Prices pushed higher, but with no demand. Have a look at the demand on that. It's just getting lower and lower through here. Price comes down again, shakeout bar, below the previous lows. This is a mini buy the offer bar. It's a nothing bar. There was some buying in it by the looks, because the next bar was up, moved up, down, and then up, but with no demand. There's no intent for the market to move higher. And then this current bit was buying up. You can see there was a little test for supply there. Then the volumes increased for 3 bars. 1, 2, 3. This was an absorption bar, a push higher, and then the market has bought its way up like this. This was a test for supply, but there was some supply being drawn out, and the last bar for the week, so yesterday, Friday, was a test for supply, and supply was low. So you can see this was likely buying, this was likely buying. There was some selling in here, but I think that was just to bring the market down for more accumulation. This was likely buying. There's a shakeout bar here, a single one, and this was likely buying. So it's definitely stronger than weaker, but until you see a definite response, you have to be suspicious. You have to be suspicious. It's okay to get involved in an accumulation, but you can get caught in there. If sentiment changes for some reason, you'll often see the accumulated stock dumped. If sentiment changes, it dumps, and the whole lot goes, and they don't muck around. They sell the lot as quick as possible, and price just moves lower with serious intent. But if price breaks out above this level, you're also going to have a level here. If price breaks out above these levels, this buying in across here will support the market and see it push higher, probably with some intent. If you're in, you want to be holding, but watch this 18,000, 16,000 level. If they got taken out on an increase in volume, I'd be concerned. If there's a break above 25,000 with supporting volume, I'd be expecting this market is going to break out. Now, it may come back and test and then go again, just exactly how the market plays it. Seeing this has been an ongoing and sustained sideways period, you may find that price does break out, then comes back, tests the breakout for strength, and then goes. But I'd be really watching these two levels, the 18,000, 16,000 to the downside and the 25,000 to the upside. They're going to be significant when this market moves. It will eventually, there's no doubt about it. Okay, we'll just move back and have a quick look at the US dollar index as usual to finish up. Put the lines in quickly. There's almost no doubt supply came in on these two bars. Initially in response, the market did a shakeout. That obviously hasn't removed it because as soon as price went up again, some more supply was drawn out. There was perhaps an attempt to hold the market here, but this confirmed the supply, and the response this week saw price move lower and test the 110 level for strength. The close off this week's low shows buying support has come in. We'll just see how much buying support there is in the market. You'll probably see it next week. Certainly expect to see an initial test for supply like this. And depending on what happens, if lots of supply continues to be drawn out, then I'll see a secondary test of the 110 level. That would be a significant change in sentiment in the market if this 110 level is broken and price moves down towards the 108 level. But if not much supply is drawn out, then you'll see price attempt to move higher again, and then we'll get to see whether there's still supply to be found at this level and higher, because from here, probably up to 115, there's been supply previously. And if price moves up there again, we'll get to see whether supply remains there or not, or if this deeper pullback has removed that supply and allowed the market then to push higher in response. Okay, that's my lot. Thanks for your time. Hope it was worthwhile. Thanks again. See ya.